The arena went dead silent. Not the polished, produced silence that WWE sometimes manufactures with a well-timed audio cue. No. This was something rawer, the kind of stillness that sweeps through 18,000 people at once when every single one of them feels it in their chest before they can even process it with their brain. The lights in the arena dimmed just slightly. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer, boo, or hold their breath. And then that music hit. That slow, deliberate, almost regal entrance theme that carries the weight of someone who has never once doubted that every room he walks into belongs to him. And as the curtain parted, there he was. Gunther, the ring general. Back on Monday Night Raw. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. If you're new here, this is the channel where we break down everything happening in the world of WWE with the depth, the passion, and the storytelling focus that every great wrestling story deserves. And today, we are diving deep into one of the most seismic moments in recent Raw history, the return and shocking announcement of Gunther, and what it means for the entire landscape of WWE heading into the biggest season of the year. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, because this is not a video you want to be late to the party on. Let's get into it. Let's set the scene properly, because context is everything when we talk about Gunther. For months, WWE's main roster had this simmering, almost volcanic tension building beneath the surface. Gunther had been away, not injured, not written off television in disgrace, but strategically, almost theatrically absent. And in professional wrestling, when someone of Gunther's stature disappears, their shadow doesn't disappear with them. If anything, it grows. Every segment that aired on Raw over those weeks carried this unspoken question hanging over it: when does the ring general come back? And more importantly, what happens when he does? Because here's the thing about Gunther that separates him from nearly everyone else in professional wrestling right now. He doesn't just return. He doesn't just show up and deliver a promo and fade back into the card. Every single time Gunther appears, reality bends slightly around him. The power dynamics in whatever room he enters shift instantly. Faces become uncertain. Heels become nervous. Even the commentators, hardened professionals who have called thousands of hours of television, change their tone. There's a gravity to this man that is genuinely rare in this industry, and on this night, that gravity was about to pull every single storyline on Raw into its orbit. The crowd's reaction as he made his way to the ring was a symphony of emotions. You had the pure, unbridled marks, the fans who simply love great wrestling roaring with excitement, because when Gunther is on your television, you are about to witness something exceptional. You had the smarks, the analytical fans who appreciate the craft, nodding with the quiet satisfaction of people who have been waiting for the board to be reset. And you had the casual viewers, the ones who had maybe drifted during the previous segment, suddenly sitting upright, pulled back in by the sheer magnetism of the moment. That is star power. That is what it looks like when a performer transcends faction allegiances and booking decisions and becomes simply, undeniably must-see television. He walked to that ring the way a king walks through his own castle. Unhurried. Unbothered. Every step measured and deliberate, as if the entire universe was on his schedule and not the other way around. He rolled under the bottom rope, no theatrics, no pyrotechnics, no jumping up and down to get the crowd fired up, because Gunther has never needed any of that. He stood in the center of that ring, the microphone raised, and he looked out at that crowd with those cold, calculating eyes, and the arena fell into that silence again. That electric, anticipatory silence that tells you something real is about to happen. And then he spoke. He didn't yell. He didn't pander. He didn't work the crowd with cheap tricks. Gunther spoke the way a man speaks when he believes every single word coming out of his mouth is simply the truth, and he is merely doing the world the favor of articulating it. He acknowledged the time away. He acknowledged that during his absence, Raw had continued, that the shows had aired, that the matches had been wrestled, the championships had changed hands and feuds had been settled. And then, with that particular brand of aristocratic contempt that he wears like a second skin, he said something to the effect that none of it mattered as much as what was about to happen next. Because he wasn't just returning to Raw to wrestle a match. He wasn't returning to reignite an old rivalry or stake a claim to a title he'd been circling from a distance. Gunther announced that he is inserting himself directly into the WrestleMania 42 conversation. Let that sink in for a moment. WrestleMania 42. The grandest stage in professional wrestling. The event that every career in this industry is ultimately measured against. The stage where legends are made and reputations are cemented for eternity. And Gunther, who already has a WrestleMania record that would make most of the locker room weak in the knees, is coming back to write another chapter. To add another name to the list of people who came before the ring general and left lesser for the experience. But here's where the announcement got truly shocking, and here's where Wrestling Impact wants you to pay extremely close attention, because this is the thread that could unravel or reweave the entire fabric of Raw's title picture. Gunther didn't simply declare his intention to chase a championship. He made a specific, pointed, almost surgical announcement about his target, and it sent a ripple through the wrestling world that is still being felt as we sit here breaking it down for you today. He laid down a challenge. Not a request, not a suggestion, a challenge, delivered with all the authority of a man who has never in his life needed to ask for anything because he has always simply taken what he wanted. And the crowd lost their minds. Because whether you love Gunther or you spend every segment hoping that anybody can finally crack that armor, you understand the stakes when he talks. You understand that this is not a man who makes empty promises or hollow declarations. When Gunther says something is going to happen, your job as a viewer is to figure out how and when, not whether. Now let's talk about the broader implications of this, because this is where Wrestling Impact separates itself. We don't just recap the moment, we contextualize it. We ask the deeper questions. We follow the threads. First, think about what this does to the existing championship picture on Raw. There are stars on that roster who have been building toward WrestleMania for months, putting in the work, establishing their narratives, developing their characters, and now, with one promo, with one return, the mountain got significantly steeper. Because Gunther doesn't just compete in a title picture. He dominates it. He has a way of making every other contender feel slightly less legitimate simply by sharing the screen with them. It is not a knock on anyone else, it is simply an acknowledgement of the extraordinary level of presence and performance that the ring general brings every single time he steps through that curtain. Second, think about what this means for the storytelling possibilities. One of the most exciting aspects of Gunther as a performer and a character is that his rivalries are never simple. They are never just two guys who want the same thing fighting over it. With Gunther, every feud becomes a war of philosophies, a collision of identities, a wrestling match that also functions as a referendum on what it means to be worthy. When Gunther looks at an opponent and tells them not cruelly, but matter-of-factly that they do not belong in the ring with him, that they have not earned what they think they have earned, it lands differently than when any other heel says something similar. It lands because there is a case to be made that he is right. And the drama comes from watching someone find a way to prove him wrong. And third, and this might be the most fascinating layer of all, consider Gunther's own personal trajectory. This is a man who came up through the European wrestling scene and became one of the most technically accomplished performers on the planet before WWE's main roster ever got to see what he could do. This is a man who held the Intercontinental Championship for a reign so dominant, so historically significant, that it will be discussed in wrestling circles for decades. This is a man who has stood across the ring from some of the most celebrated performers of this era and made those matches feel like they were happening at the absolute summit of what professional wrestling can be. And yet, and this is the remarkable thing, it still feels like we have not seen the ceiling of what Gunther is capable of. The ceiling feels, somehow, still above us. And WrestleMania 42 is the stage where that ceiling might finally get tested. Let's talk about the atmosphere in that arena for a moment. Because the human element of wrestling is something that sometimes gets lost when we break down the booking and the storytelling mechanics, and it deserves to be honored. The fans who were live in that building on that Monday night, they knew they were watching something significant. You could feel it in the camera cuts. You could see it in the faces of the fans sitting ringside, the ones who had driven hours or flown from other cities to be in that building on that particular night. Some of them had no idea this was coming. Some of them probably thought they were in for a solid but relatively routine episode of Raw. And then the ring general's music hit and suddenly they were witnesses to history. There is something genuinely beautiful about that, regardless of your allegiances or your preferences. The unpredictability of professional wrestling at its best, the way it can transform an ordinary Tuesday morning into a story you'll tell for years, is on full display in moments like these. Now, naturally, the moment Gunther's music cut and he stepped back through that curtain, the speculation machine kicked into overdrive. And we here at Wrestling Impact have been listening to all of it, the fan theories, the dirt sheet whispers, the comment section debates, and we want to give you our honest, informed read on what this all could be building toward. Point one direction this could go is a confrontation with the current title holder, a collision that has the bones of a truly great WrestleMania story. The contrast in styles, the contrast in characters, the athletic and dramatic potential of that matchup is almost too rich. You have, on one side, Gunther the European technical machine, the ring general who believes wrestling is a discipline and a calling and that most of his opponents are in the ring by luck rather than merit. And you have, potentially, on the other side, someone who has built their championship reign on heart and resilience and the kind of fighting spirit that connects with audiences on an almost primal level. That is not just a wrestling match. That is a story. That is a WrestleMania story. Another direction, and this one is perhaps more intriguing from a character standpoint, is that Gunther's return is not just about a championship. It is about a statement. It is about recalibrating the entire ecosystem of Raw. Consider this: for all of Gunther's accomplishments, for all the respect his work commands, there are newer faces on this roster who have risen significantly in his absence. Stars who have gotten comfortable in positions of prominence. And Gunther, being Gunther, may have returned specifically to remind everyone, talent, management, and audience alike, of the natural order of things. This is a man who once infamously reminded the entire WWE Universe that there are tiers to professional wrestling, and that most people do not occupy the tier where he resides. What happens when that philosophy meets a locker room that spent months building itself a new hierarchy in his absence? The promo he delivered, sharp, contemptuous, and devastating in its precision, made something very clear. Gunther is not interested in the WrestleMania spotlight for sentimental reasons. He is not coming back because he missed the adulation or the road or the bright lights. He is coming back because he has unfinished business with the concept of greatness itself. He is coming back because somewhere in that calculating mind of his, he has decided that there is a level of legacy still left to achieve, and he is not the kind of man who leaves things unfinished. And frankly, for those of us who watch this show week after week and invest in these stories and these characters, that is exactly what we want. We want the ring general operating at full capacity. We want the matches that feel like they matter. We want the promos that crackle with genuine menace and intelligence. We want the Monday nights where you clear your schedule and sit down and watch Raw knowing that something real might happen at any moment. Gunther's return is a promise that those nights are coming again. Before we wrap this one up, let's take a step back and appreciate something that gets said too rarely in wrestling coverage: the level of craft that goes into being Gunther. In an era where so much of professional wrestling's presentation leans on spectacle, pyrotechnics, and elaborate entrance props and social media virality, Gunther is one of the rare performers who strips all of that away and forces the audience to watch him through nothing but the quality of what he does between those ropes and on that microphone. His ring work is a masterclass in every session. His selling tells a story. His offense carries authentic weight. And his promo work, understated, deliberate, never performing more than the moment requires, creates a character that feels genuinely alive in a way that is extraordinarily difficult to achieve in the world of scripted entertainment. He is, put simply, one of the best professional wrestlers on planet Earth. And on this Monday night, he came back to Raw and reminded the entire WWE Universe of that fact in the most Gunther way imaginable, with quiet, absolute, unshakable certainty. The road to WrestleMania 42 just got a whole lot more interesting, folks. So here's what we want to know from you. Drop it in the comments right now. Who do you want to see Gunther's WrestleMania 42 moment be against? Who on that Raw roster has the character, the story, and the in-ring ability to go toe-to-toe with the ring general on the grandest stage of them all? And do you think Gunther walks out of WrestleMania with championship gold around his waist? Or does this become the story of someone finally solving the ring general puzzle? Let's debate it. The comments section is yours. If this video gave you everything you needed to feel caught up and fired up about what's happening on Raw, do us a favor and hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more wrestling fans who deserve great content. And if you're not subscribed to Wrestling Impact yet, what are you waiting for? This is the home of cinematic, in-depth WWE storytelling, and we are just getting started with WrestleMania season. New content coming at you consistently, so hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss a moment. The ring general has returned. The announcement has been made. The countdown to WrestleMania 42 has officially begun. And here on Wrestling Impact we will be with you every step of the way. I'll see you in the next one.